Throughout life's journey, we encounter souls who leave profound imprints on our hearts. Some illuminate our path with genuine connection, filling our days with understanding and shared growth. Others appear bearing lessons wrapped in disappointment and heartache, teaching us through contrast what true love is not. But have you ever wondered why we cling so desperately to those who don't truly see us? Why do we invest our precious energy in relationships where our love remains unreciprocated, where our worth goes unrecognized? The answer lies not in the other person, but in the mysterious depths of our own inner landscape. Our unconscious mind creates powerful patterns that silently guide who we attract and what we accept in relationships. This isn't random chance. It's a reflection of our deepest beliefs about ourselves. Loving yourself enough to attract the right person is not only an act of self-love, it is an act of psychological maturity. It signifies that you have reached a level of awareness where you recognize that you cannot continue investing your energy in something that only drains you. It means understanding that your time, your love, and your presence are gifts, and not everyone deserves access to them. Because once you recognize your own worth, the dynamics begin to shift. You no longer settle for the bare minimum. You no longer chase after those who do not wish to stay. You stop trying to fit into spaces that make you feel small. Instead, you become someone who consciously chooses the type of relationships they want in their life. More often than not, the fear of loneliness is what prevents people from valuing themselves enough to attract authentic love. But Jung taught that solitude is not the enemy. The real danger lies in disconnection from oneself. You can be surrounded by people and still feel utterly alone if you lack a deep connection with yourself. On the other hand, when you cultivate that connection, when you truly know yourself, solitude ceases to be a problem. You no longer crave external validation. You no longer depend on another's presence to feel whole. And in that state, relationships transform. They are no longer a desperate need, but a conscious choice. You are with someone not because you need them, but because you genuinely choose them from a place of wholeness, not from a place of lack. When you repeatedly find yourself in relationships where you give far more than you receive, where your needs remain unmet while you attend to everyone else's, this isn't coincidence. It's your unconscious mind externalizing unresolved inner conflicts, showing you in the physical world what remains unhealed within. Letting go of someone who doesn't value you isn't merely about ending a relationship. It's a profound act of self-discovery, an opportunity to examine what this connection reveals about your relationship with yourself. When you hold on to something that clearly diminishes your spirit, you're ignoring an essential lesson your soul is trying to teach you. Think about those moments when your intuition whispered that something wasn't right, yet you remained. Perhaps you justified their behavior, convinced yourself they would change, or believed that with enough love and patience, they would finally recognize your worth. The difficult truth is that the core issue isn't their inability to value you, it's what their treatment activates within you. Our most complicated relationships often mirror our shadow, those disowned aspects of ourselves we've tucked away in the darkest corners of our psyche. The shadow isn't inherently negative, but when left unacknowledged, it orchestrates our lives from behind the scenes. If you secretly harbor beliefs that you're unworthy of complete love, that affection must be earned through struggle, that you must constantly prove yourself to be valued, you will inevitably attract circumstances that reinforce these very beliefs. Until you bring these unconscious patterns into the light of awareness, they will continue directing your life while you wonder why the same painful scenarios keep repeating. This is the profound truth at the heart of relationship patterns. They persist until the lesson they contain is fully embraced. What happens when you finally choose to let go? In that courageous moment of release, you reclaim your power. You acknowledge that you are not destined to beg for scraps of affection or remain trapped in cycles of emotional depletion. You recognize your authority to either continue a draining battle or step toward authentic evolution. The fear that accompanies letting go is natural. Our minds are wired to cling to what's familiar, even when that familiarity causes suffering. The unknown territories beyond a relationship can seem terrifying, but real growth only emerges when we're willing to face this uncertainty with courage. At its essence, releasing someone who doesn't value you is a profound act of self-love. It's a declaration to your unconscious mind. I recognize my worth. I respect my needs. I choose connections that honor who I truly am. If a relationship has pushed you to your limits, if it has made you question your self-worth, it's because something within you needs healing. Often that healing can only happen when you have the courage to say, enough. Your unconscious mind is always communicating with you, sending signals and messages, but too often we ignore them because we're too busy justifying our pain. We tell ourselves we might be overreacting, that love requires sacrifice, that if we just hold on a little longer, everything will improve. But the truth is simple, yet profound. Love is not about constant struggle, nor is it about proving your worth. True love, the kind that nurtures and expands your soul, flows naturally. If you have to convince someone to value you, then you are simply not in the right place. It's time to start trusting that inner voice, the intuition we have silenced so many times. Your unconscious already knows what you need, but it's up to you to take the necessary steps. Ask yourself, what do I truly deserve? If your answer is genuine love, respect, and reciprocity, then start moving in the direction of those experiences. When you decide to honor your worth, something within you changes on a profound level. You are no longer trying to fit into a mold that doesn't belong to you, nor are you exhausting yourself seeking breadcrumbs of affection from someone who was never willing to offer you more. At that moment, a psychological phenomenon occurs. What Jung described as the integration of the shadow begins. That part of you that once begged for love, that searched for validation in the wrong places, begins to be illuminated by consciousness. When you bring awareness to your patterns, you are no longer a prisoner to them. People often resist this process because they believe they will lose something valuable, but ask yourself, how valuable can something truly be if it makes you feel unworthy? Carl Jung once said that unnecessary suffering is a choice. Often we cling to pain out of fear of what comes next, fear of the unknown. Our mind creates an illusion, a false narrative that convinces us that a certain relationship is all we have left, that without that person we will never find anything better. But this is nothing more than a deception, a trick of the ego, a distortion from the unconscious that keeps us bound to something we intuitively know is not good for us. This is where Jung's concept of individuation comes into play, one of his most profound and transformative ideas. Individuation is the process of recognizing your intrinsic worth, of no longer defining yourself through the eyes of others. It's the understanding that you don't need external validation to feel complete. It's a journey toward authenticity, a path of self-discovery where you realize that the most important love you will ever experience doesn't come from another person, it comes from within you. But this journey cannot begin if you remain attached to a story that no longer serves you. It's fascinating how often we cling to toxic or one-sided relationships, hoping the other person will change, that one day they will wake up and recognize our worth. Yet if you examine this desire closely, you'll see that the longing to be acknowledged by someone who doesn't truly appreciate us merely reflects a much deeper wound within ourselves. Why do we seek validation from those who disregard us? Why do we feel the need for someone else's approval to believe that we are enough? Jung explained that these patterns stem from unresolved wounds in our psyche, wounds often formed during childhood. Perhaps we learned to associate love with sacrifice. Perhaps at some point in our lives, we were taught that we must struggle for affection, that love must be earned rather than received freely. But here is the truth. Real love does not require suffering. The right person will not make you feel like you have to fight for their attention. If you are in a relationship where you constantly feel the need to prove your worth, that is a clear sign that this connection is misaligned with your essence. When you make the decision to love yourself enough, a part of you will resist. The habitual self will try to cling to the story you have built, to the illusion of what could have been, to the hope that if you just wait long enough, things will change. But time does not change people. People change when they choose to. And if someone has not shown the intention to value you by now, waiting will only cost you more of what you have already given away. Attachment to a relationship that no longer serves us is not just an emotional bond. It reflects a much deeper internal struggle. You are not merely fighting for the relationship itself. You are battling against an unconscious belief deeply ingrained in your psyche. This belief tells you that without this person, you are not valuable enough, that your worth depends on their presence, on their validation. But the truth stands immovable. Your worth has never been dictated by another's gaze. Your value has always existed within you, though perhaps you have not yet learned to recognize it because you have spent too much time searching for it in the wrong places, in the eyes of those who could never truly see you. When you love yourself enough to walk away from what diminishes you, you free yourself from this internal war. You no longer need to prove anything or justify your love through unnecessary sacrifices. On the contrary, the act of choosing yourself transforms into an act of supreme self-love. It is the moment when you finally choose yourself, the realization that you no longer have to wait for someone else to notice you, when you have the power to see yourself. True connection is never forced, never begged for, never demanded. It happens naturally when two souls resonate with each other, when both freely choose to be present without conditions or expectations. Something profoundly powerful happens when you decide to take this step towards self-love. You stop living according to what the other person does or does not do, and instead you begin to reclaim your own energy. The energy you had invested in someone else, the energy you had wasted on worries, on trying to fit in, on attempting to salvage what was never meant to be saved. When that energy returns to you, something transformative occurs. You start to see clearly. You become aware of how much you had been denying yourself in your desperate attempt to hold on to something that was never truly yours. But beyond that realization, you begin to open yourself up to new possibilities. The fundamental principle of meaningful coincidences becomes evident in your life. New people appear. Unexpected opportunities arise. You start to see that life was never against you. It was simply waiting for you to find the courage to release the old so that the new could take its place. But none of this can happen if you remain trapped in the same story, if you continue to pour your energy into a place where it is not appreciated. There is no greater act of power than saying enough when something no longer resonates with you, not out of bitterness, not out of resentment, but out of the deep awareness that you deserve better. This is where many people struggle. They believe that loving themselves enough to walk away is a passive act, that it means surrendering to loss. But loving yourself enough is not about losing. It is about gaining. It is about gaining freedom, gaining space for what truly belongs to you, gaining a version of yourself that no longer clings to what causes pain. There is no awakening of consciousness without pain. Loving yourself enough to attract the right person does hurt. It hurts because it means saying goodbye to a chapter of your life, to a bond in which you invested time, love, and hope. But that pain is temporary. What endures is the peace that follows, the lightness that comes from no longer carrying a relationship that didn't flow, a love that wasn't reciprocated, a story that existed only in your mind but never fully materialized in reality. In this process of choosing yourself, something incredible happens. You rediscover your essence. You realize that you can be alone without feeling lonely, that you can look at yourself in the mirror without needing someone else's approval, that you are enough not because someone tells you so, but because you have come to understand it from the depths of your being. When you reach this point of self-recognition, everything changes. You no longer settle for less. You no longer tolerate what you once endured. You no longer allow the fear of solitude to keep you in places where you aren't valued. This is the true meaning of loving yourself enough to attract the right person. It isn't simply releasing a relationship. It's releasing the version of yourself that believed you had to fight for love, that thought love had to be earned through suffering and struggle. It's saying goodbye to fear, to lack, to emotional dependence. It's a rebirth, a transformation into someone who chooses from a place of abundance rather than from a place of desperation. The most important relationship we will ever have is the one we cultivate with ourselves. When that relationship grows strong, when you truly know and value yourself, you will never again have to beg for love. You will finally understand that what is truly meant for you will never require you to chase it. It will come naturally, effortlessly, without struggle, without depletion. Loving yourself enough is not giving up. It is having the courage to recognize that you deserve more. It's taking a step into the unknown with the faith that what lies ahead far surpasses what you're leaving behind. When you finally make this decision, when you choose to close that chapter that no longer serves your highest good, you realize that true self-love isn't just about saying affirmations in the mirror. It's about the choices you make every single day. And the most powerful choice you can ever make is to choose yourself over any relationship that fails to value you. When you finally choose yourself, when you decide to love yourself enough to release what is hurting you, something profound happens inside of you. The energy that was once trapped in struggle, in uncertainty, in the hope that someone else would change, returns to you with newfound strength. The heavy burden you've been carrying suddenly lifts, allowing you to breathe again. In that moment of clarity, you realize it was never the relationship that bound you. It was the belief that without it, you would be incomplete. The fear of loving yourself enough does not come from the loss itself, but from the mistaken idea that without this person, you will never find anything as meaningful or better. But here is the truth that changes everything. When you love yourself enough to release what doesn't value you, you create space for what truly does. This act becomes a profound declaration of faith. Faith in yourself, faith in the flow of life, faith in the certainty that what is meant for you will arrive at the right moment, without force, without struggle, without resistance. For this transformation to happen, you must first have the courage to close the door that keeps you trapped in a place where your heart no longer sings. The process of becoming whole isn't just about self-discovery, it's about integration, about learning to embrace every part of who you are, both the light and the shadow. A crucial aspect of this path involves learning to love yourself enough to let go, releasing without fear, trusting that what leaves your life is not a loss, but a redirection. Every time a relationship comes to an end, a door opens for deep introspection. Instead of clinging to what was, you have an opportunity to ask yourself, what is this experience revealing about me? Perhaps it's showing you that you still struggle to set boundaries, that you continue to seek validation in places that cannot provide it, or that there are wounds within you needing healing before you can truly attract love that aligns with your worth. When you resist loving yourself enough, what you're really doing is prolonging your own suffering. You hold on to an idealized version of what could have been, to a future that exists only in your mind, to the belief that if you just try harder, everything will change. But the truth remains clear and unwavering. Love should never feel like a battle where you're the only one fighting. Love is not meant to be a constant struggle. If someone cannot see your value, if they are unwilling to walk beside you with respect and reciprocity, then that person is not meant to remain in your life. And that's okay. Not everyone is destined to be a permanent part of your journey. But that doesn't mean you should cling to those who have already shown you through their actions that they cannot or will not give you what you need. The real issue is not the person who fails to appreciate you, it's what you choose to do with that reality. You can continue waiting, making excuses, and turning a blind eye to the truth, or you can choose to honor yourself, to stop investing your energy in something that does not nourish you, to create space in your life for relationships that genuinely add value to your existence. Sometimes the fear of loving yourself enough stems from the idea that you will be alone. But true loneliness is not the absence of someone else. It is the disconnection from your own being. There are people constantly surrounded by others, yet still feeling empty, because external company cannot fill the void left by an inauthentic connection with yourself. The only thing that truly fills that emptiness is your connection with your purpose, your essence, your truth. When you choose to love yourself enough, you send a powerful message to your subconscious that you trust yourself, that you choose yourself, that you don't need to hold on to relationships that diminish your spirit in order to feel whole. And the moment you make this choice, everything begins to align. Life responds to the energy you project. When you operate from a place of need, of lack, of fear, you attract more of the same. But when you radiate self-worth and the unwavering conviction that you deserve better, the people who enter your life will reflect that same energy back to you. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe for more. And if you'd like to support the channel, a super thanks would mean the world. Thank you for watching.